All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to GlucoseZone Diabetes Talk. I'm your host, Charlie O'Connell. We are broadcasting live from the GlucoseZone studio, and I'm going to put my tech team on blast right now. We're having technical difficulties. It's all good, guys. This is what technology is amazing. We are broadcasting around the world right now just with an iPhone, okay? When we get back up and running, we're gonna go live on Facebook, okay, through our normal means. But let me go ahead and get started today. And tonight's topic is the 5 worst exercise for diabetes, okay? And this is a very, very important topic that is misunderstood by many people. I want to do a big shout out to Linda Latina. Linda, thank you for joining us and sticking with us. Okay, technology sometimes it kind of has a funny way of not behaving, but I'm glad that you're here. Okay, and like I said, tonight's topic is the 5 worst exercise for people living with diabetes. Now, as always, I want to answer any questions that you might have, so go ahead and send them out. Okay, and me and my team are going to do our best to basically answer those questions. So, Tammy joining us from Chicago. Guys, I was so excited today in our live broadcast, in our exercise broadcast. We had somebody joining us from the Philippines. It's so cool and so exciting and inspiring when we have people from around the world joining us in the GlucoseZone and basically taking the fight to diabetes, okay? And I want to say what's up to Sammy Joe and Tanya. Okay, so let me get right into it and start talking about the exercises that you don't want to do when you have diabetes and the scenarios where exercise can be really challenging, okay? So, the first thing is understanding what safe glucose levels are when you exercise. This is one of the most important parts of having success with diabetes and exercise, and it goes as follows. If your glucose level is below 100 and you are taking a hypoglycemic medication or agent, it may be unsafe to exercise. It may be unsafe to do any exercise, okay? And you should consider having a healthy, fast-acting carbohydrate. Now, to be very clear, a medication that's a hypoglycemic agent is a medication where there is a risk for low blood sugar. So if you are taking a medication that has that side effect, you really need to be paying attention to this rule, okay? If your number is below 100, you may want to consider a healthy fast-acting carb. Now, let's talk about an example of a healthy fast-acting carb. Something like apple juice, okay, or orange juice would be a great example of a healthy fast-acting carbohydrate. The key is quantity, all right? And we talk a lot about here in the GlucoseZone using juice boxes. Juice boxes are excellent because they have a very specific quantity, and that can be reassuring and basically helpful, because one thing that people with diabetes sometimes run into is, yes, 4 ounces. Tanya, that's a good question. So 4 to 6 ounces of apple juice or orange juice or a juice box, okay, is what you want to go for. The actual amount of carbohydrate that you're looking for is about 15 grams, okay? Now, if your number is between 100 and 250, this is the safe range for exercise with diabetes. And generally speaking, you should be safe to start exercising. Now, if your number is above 250, this is a caution zone. It may be unsafe to exercise, and you should consider having some sort of basically either talking to your healthcare provider or potentially checking for ketones. Now, let's talk about why we're checking for ketones. There's a condition called ketoacidosis. Ketoacidosis is a very dangerous condition, okay? Ketoacidosis is a very dangerous condition where you are at risk for a serious diabetes, basically emergency. And if you do have ketones in your blood and your blood sugar is above 250, it is not safe to exercise, and you should basically contact your healthcare provider immediately, okay? And let me just break this down a little bit more, because ketones are a misunderstood thing, okay? The presence of ketones in your blood by itself is not a bad thing. And there's something called a ketogenic diet. What a ketogenic diet does is it actually promotes the use of ketones as a source of energy, okay? But the presence of ketones with a blood sugar over 250 is a very, very dangerous thing, and it means that you may be at risk or already experiencing ketoacidosis, okay? So the key here is, what is your blood sugar level? If your blood sugar level is above 250, this is a caution. And if you test your blood sugar and it's above 250 and and then you test for the presence of ketones and you have ketones, you don't want to exercise. All right. Now, if your number is if your number is above 300, this is a red light. Okay? It is not safe to exercise, and basically you need to consider making an adjustment. You need to either talk to your healthcare provider, you need to make an adjustment to your medication, or you need to make an adjustment to the food that you're eating. But you definitely should not exercise. Now, you might be saying, wow, Charlie, I thought that I was supposed to use exercise to lower my blood sugar. So here's one scenario where exercising with your number above 300 is okay. If you have taken all of your prescribed medication, okay, and your number is above 300, you can use exercise as a solution to lower your blood sugar levels, but you need to be very careful with the type of exercise that you select. And if you go on GlucoseZone, you'll see that we have very specific workouts that are called glucose lowering workouts. And these are the types of workouts that you should be following, okay? All right, now, I see we have a bunch of questions coming in, and I'm gonna be looking up at our screen right here, and this is giving you guys a little bit of a sneak peek of how this actually works here in the GlucoseZone. So you see that screen right there? That is my view out into the world, and I get to see all the questions and answers that our digital coaches are sharing right now, okay? And I see that we've got a bunch of questions coming in, okay? So I want Tammy, first off, Tammy has a comment, okay? And Tammy basically shared with us that she has a friend who has type 1 and she goes very low, okay? Or she went very low last Sunday and you got her back on track with apple juice. Okay, so that's an exact perfect example of why we are recommending apple juice as a healthy fast-acting carb, because it raises your blood sugar very quickly, okay? All right, now, let's answer this question from Tanya, okay? So Tanya's asking, I've noticed usually when I start a normal, here we go. I have noticed usually when I start at a normal range, 120 to 140, but after checking my sugar after 40 minutes and I do squats, I noticed that it raises higher more than 300, and I'm on an insulin pump. Okay, so Tanya, thank you for sharing that with us, okay? And that is actually sometimes a very common thing for people that are on insulin pumps. And I'm going to ask you two questions. The first question is, did you take your insulin pump off? And the second question is, did you suspend the insulin while you were exercising? Okay? That's the first question. The second question is, when you did the squats, was the workout really, really challenging? And the reason why I'm asking you that is, There are two types of metabolic pathways that your body uses when you perform exercise, and they're called aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic exercise utilizes fat and oxygen and excess glucose in your blood to supply energy. Anaerobic exercise follows what's called a glycolytic pathway. And what a glycolytic pathway means is that your body will actually respond to the exercise by supplying you with more glucose. And this is actually one of the most counterintuitive and frustrating things to understand about exercise with diabetes, is that certain types of exercise can actually cause your glucose levels to rise, and sometimes rise significantly. And those types of exercises are dictated by that rise is dictated by whether or not your body is performing and recruiting fuel through glycolytic sources or through fat oxygen sources. Okay, and you've heard me break this down before about understanding lipid utilization in the body and the relationship between lipid utilization and insulin. Okay, now second, so Tammy is following up basically, and Tammy says, I make sure that I eat before working out at least 30 minutes, and I check my levels before and after, and I'm usually within normal range, but I'm not taking medication. Okay, all right, so let's just talk about that for a second. The general rules for food. Okay, generally speaking, guys, I recommend that you avoid eating food within 2 hours of exercise. Now, that's not always possible, okay? But generally speaking, if you wait 2 hours, that'll give your body the actual time to store the glucose derived from the food properly. And I'll put that in context. If you've ever taken an oral glucose tolerance test, you know that it's a 2-hour test. The reason why it's a 2-hour test is it takes about 2 hours to actually store any glucose from food in your body. So generally speaking, we have the recommendation of, if you can, waiting 2 hours. All right, now that's not always possible, and especially in the morning time. So if you are gonna eat before working out, then what we definitely recommend is the green juice. Okay, and you guys have heard me talk a lot about the green juice. We've actually got a big announcement coming soon about what we're going to be doing with green juicing. But the point of green juicing is to provide your body with all the vitamins, minerals, and nutrients that it needs, okay, to perform effectively with very, very little carbohydrate. And what that does is enables your body to begin the fat metabolism process. Okay. All right, now, I think we had highlighted right there, Laura, if we could bring this up for a second, Tammy's response, okay? So Tanya's response. So Tanya says, no, I didn't turn the pump off or suspend it, but yes, I am a beginner. Okay, so first off, Tanya, thank you for sharing that, okay? Generally speaking, if you're a beginner with exercise, doing lots of squats could definitely stimulate a glycolytic response. And again, to be very specific, what a glycolytic response means is that your liver will literally dump sugar into your bloodstream in response to the activity. And what your body is trying to do is provide you with energy, because fat oxidation takes longer, okay, to metabolize and produce, right, as opposed to just straight sugar. And that's actually one of the things that people with diabetes don't really realize, and it's a problem, is that your body provides you with all of the sources of energy that you need. And stored inside of your body. We store macronutrients, okay? We store fat, we store carbs, store protein, we store water. And sometimes people with diabetes get into this bad kind of cycle of understanding where they equate the only source of energy is food, okay? And they're constantly basically drinking Gatorade or eating food while they're working out to keep their blood sugar levels up. And that's not what you want to do. You don't want to, that is not an effective way to manage your diabetes while you're exercising. All right, now we had another one highlighted. If we could just pull that up here again, guys. So, all right, we've got a question from Jani. Jani Katan, thank you for joining us, Jani. I want to know where you're logging in from, okay? So she said, the question says, I'm 19 now, okay? I'm weighing 48 kilograms, and I'm also using the GlucoseZone app. Which exercise is useful for strengthening muscles? Okay, so first off, I am pumped up and happy that you're using the GlucoseZone app. So what I want you to do is I want you to go into the GlucoseZone app. I want you to go into our workout library, and any of the workouts that are labeled as strength training or upper body, okay, are going to be specific exercise routines designed for muscle building, okay? And I want you to start off, a great one that we have is our upper body level 2 workout, okay? Where it really is gonna challenge you. There's plenty of total body workout or exercise in that workout, but it's specifically going to help with building muscle and strengthening muscle, okay? All right, now we had another question highlighted, okay, that I wanna bring up, and you guys are seeing here, this is kind of fun. You guys get to see how this works behind the scenes here. So we got a question from Mike Haas. Mike, thank you for joining us. Mike, I want to know where you're logging in from. It says, I have type 2 diabetes and I'm wanting to train for ultra endurance. The VA wants me to slow down instead of increasing my exercise. Is it really dangerous for a diabetic to do ultra endurance? Okay. First off, Mike, that is a fantastic question, okay? And I want to encourage you that if you have a fitness goal of ultra endurance, you absolutely should pursue that goal, okay? Now, what the question is why is the VA telling you to slow down? Are they concerned that you're not managing your diabetes in an effective way? And the second question is, when you do your training for ultra endurance, are your glucose levels not in an ideal place? All right, and those are really, really important questions, because ultimately the only way that you are going to have success with an ultra endurance event is making sure that your glucose levels, your insulin levels, and the other counter-regulatory hormones in your body are working in an effective way, or you're taking medication to bring them into balance, okay? And so that is really what I would say, is that number one, yes, you absolutely can do an ultra endurance event, and I want to hear about how you do it, okay? I want you to reach out to me personally, and I want you to reach out to this team, because we want to hear about your success. But if you're having trouble managing your diabetes during ultra endurance training, there's some very specific guidelines that you need to know, okay? All right, now, Johnny's from India. Okay, that's awesome. And has type 1, so thank you for sharing that, Johnny. Try the strength training workouts that we've created, okay? Those are gonna help with basically building up your muscle. Okay, so, I kind of circled around a couple of things in this talk about the 5 worst exercise for diabetes. So let me be very specific. I just talked about how different activity levels stimulate either an aerobic fat oxidation or a glycolytic pathway. And here's what you need to understand. If your goal is to lower your blood sugar levels, then you want to avoid glycolytic pathways of fuel utilization. And we've simplified that process for you. So any workout that you do in the GlucoseZone is designed to avoid glycolytic pathways of exercise, because we know that generally speaking, most people want to lower their blood sugar levels with exercise. They want to use exercise as a solution to lower their glucose levels. So all of the workouts in the GlucoseZone are designed for that. If you are noticing that your glucose levels are going up and going up significantly during any of our workouts, it's very important that you examine the medication routine that you're on, because the medication routine that you're on either may not be prescribed effectively, or you need to talk with your healthcare provider about the amounts of medication you're taking and the timing of the medication. All right? All right, now, this has been a really quick broadcast. We're going to keep going a little bit over today because we started late, and I want to thank everybody for basically hanging in with us. Okay, we're going to do our full 30 minutes. Let me talk about some specific exercises that you should avoid. Okay, and the first exercise that you should avoid is burpees. Now, why should you avoid burpees if you have diabetes? Okay, the reason why you should avoid burpees if you have diabetes is because people with diabetes are susceptible to something called neuropathy. And neuropathy is basically a condition where your limbs, and specifically your hands and your feet, are susceptible to high impact activities. All right? And a burpee is a classic example of a high impact activity. So not only do burpees put your wrists and your hands and your feet at risk, but they also stimulate your heart rate to go super high. And when your heart rate goes super high, there's a potential for a glycolytic response. So those two things make burpees just really not a very smart idea for people living with diabetes. Okay? All right, now, I want to do a huge shout out right now to Donnie Ray. I want to leave that up there right now so I can read that. Donnie Ray, Donnie, where are you logging in from? Donnie Ray just shared with us, says, I have type 2 and I've had one leg amputated. Your chair strength level 1 has made a huge difference in my life. 3 months ago, my A1C was 12.7, now it's 7.2. Donnie, you are the man. That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. What Donnie's talking about, guys, is our chair-based strength training program and our total body workout that's in the chair. It really is a wonderfully developed exercise routine that anybody can perform. And Donnie, I'm so proud of you for basically making that happen, okay? Keep doing what you're doing. And I want you to check out our other chair-based workouts, because we've actually created 4 or 5 of them now. If you go on GlucoseZone and just search through, you'll see. But that is so awesome. Okay? All right. Now, getting back to exercises you want to avoid. All right? So burpees, classic example, exercise that people with diabetes really just, there's very little benefit. Okay? Other thing you want to avoid is on the opposite end. So if your glucose levels are trending low, and especially if you're taking oral medications or insulin therapy where there's a hypoglycemic risk, you want to avoid exercise like running on the treadmill or long walks. Okay? And generally speaking, running on the treadmill, going for a jog, or long walks are some of the scenarios where people living with diabetes experience low blood sugar. Okay, and to be very, very clear, the same reasons why going for a walk after a meal are recommended to people to control postprandial glucose excursions is the same reason why you should avoid going for a walk if you're taking hypoglycemic agents. So let me just break it down for a second, exactly what I mean by that, okay? If you have prediabetes or if you have type 2 diabetes and you are not taking any medications, which is a lot of people like that, going for a walk after a meal is a good idea, because a walk after a meal will control postprandial glucose excursions. Postprandial glucose excursion means a spike in your glucose levels after you eat, okay? And if you fall into those categories of prediabetes or having type 2 diabetes but not taking medication, that's a great idea. But if you have type 1 diabetes or if you have type 2 diabetes and you're taking medications that have a hypoglycemic risk, you definitely should not be going for a long walk after eating, because you are going to be at a high risk for hypoglycemia. And hypoglycemia is one of the most frustrating aspects of diabetes management, because hypoglycemia is not diabetes. Hypoglycemia is the result of the mismanagement of diabetes medication, or from being in a scenario where you do something like go for a walk after you've taken the medication, all right? And that's a complicated thing. It's one of the reasons why exercise is different for people living with diabetes than the general population. Depending on what a person's glucose level is, it may or may not be safe to exercise, and it may or may not be safe to perform certain exercise, okay? And part of getting into GlucoseZone is really understanding that difference, okay? All right. We got another comment here that I want to address, and I want to thank Michelle Alvarez for sharing this. So Michelle, first off, Michelle, where are you logging in from? Okay, please let us know. But what Michelle says is, I have been struggling with workout time since I work out all day. I work out at night and I get hungry after dinner. Okay, and Michelle, you're joining us from the Baja in Mexico. I wish I was in the Baja in Mexico right now, okay? So thank you for joining us. But here's the thing, Michelle, okay? I don't want you to think that you shouldn't be eating after working out, okay? In fact, it's the exact opposite. Eating after you work out is the healthy, correct time to be eating. You just want to be making sure that you're eating something healthy and that your portion control is in an appropriate place. But you shouldn't be starving yourself. Your body is designed to replenish, okay, glycogen stores and basically build muscle through food after you exercise. So don't fall for the, don't basically feel guilty about eating or wanting to eat after exercise. That's totally normal. What you want to do is find foods that are really healthy, that are nutrient dense, okay, and that are going to help you reach your fitness and diabetes goals. And so generally speaking, that is vegetables, okay, lean meats, absolutely, things like chicken, things like salmon, things like tuna. Those are excellent meals and sources of food to have after you've worked out, okay? And don't feel guilty, or don't, basically fall into that very, very common trap of, you know what, I don't want to eat after I worked out, okay? There is one rule that I like to recommend to clients that have concerns about eating late at night, okay? and it's the 1-3-3 rule. Okay, and what the 1-3-3 rule is generally speaking, you want to have a light breakfast within 1 hour of waking up. And you guys know me, I recommend doing green juicing for breakfast. Generally speaking, you want to have that within 1 hour of waking up. I drink my green juice basically almost as soon as I wake up. Okay? The first three, so 1-3-3, is you then want to be having small meal every 3 hours. Okay? And this is one of the biggest things about healthy eating and making sure that you're having the correct portion sizes is small meals can be a very, very effective way at limiting portion. Okay? The last three is try to eat dinner within more than 3 hours before going to bed. And now that's the hard one, okay? But I want you to start thinking about that and factoring it in, okay? And the earlier you can eat dinner, the more you're gonna give your body the opportunity to digest food, okay? And be in a more healthy place before you go to sleep. All right, guys, that was a quick 31 minutes. Thank you so much for hanging in there. I apologize for the technical difficulties. Technology is an amazing thing. You know, we weren't able to go live from our broadcasting studio, but we were able to go live directly through an iPhone. It's so awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Join us on Thursday. Remember, exercise at 6:30. Diabetes Talk at 7:30. I look forward to answering all of your questions. And absolutely, Michelle, I'm going to take you up. I'm going to see you in the Baja soon. Okay? All right. Good night.